Everything's relevant. Episode 8. So, here we are, another week. Everything's relevant, episode 8. All alone again. So, it seems like one guy's dropping out. I don't know what's happening with the other guy. And perhaps this is going to become taking it to the max. So, today, another just rambling off the top, kind of solo project. We'll start off with Black Tea, right? We're rocking it. Mandalorian and the child. I kind of call myself the Grandalorian for my grandchild. So it's kind of cool. I like to share that with you. Topic I wanted to talk about again was deep state, trying to figure out, what's going on, people taking over our government and using it against us so that people have a bad image of government overall. I don't want to talk about it by myself. So, we'll jump around. So, one of the things I like to do every weekend is play Dominos. And it's like I find the game anywhere, usually on the block, K195, people's houses, barbecues. Yesterday I was out at Pelham Park. They invited me, this was going on after my daughter actually brought my granddaughter over, so we were spending time. Yeah, where you at? So eventually, after 3 hours with the baby and everything, I'm like, all right, let me head out there. I'm on my way. OMW, I'm on my way. I'm almost there. My man D text me, PS, where you at? I'm a few minutes away, I'm parking. So I kind of get there, roll up into the park. I got 2 tables set up, kind of going. They're playing, happy to see me. We all like good competition, so we like to play. So we call it the main table, the big wooden table, has the good dominoes and whatnot. They're playing, it's already in motion, they're playing $20 a person, and it's going back and forth, and it's pretty, they're getting into it. I sit down with my man D at the other table, we start playing, talk with some people, there, having a little bit of fun, and then all of a sudden, P starts tapping me. I want you on the big table. Come on. Because him and his cousin, they're catching wreck. They're winning. He's feeling all good about himself. Oh, me and Jay play. We ain't going to lose. Nobody's taking us off. Blah, blah, blah. So eventually, come off the little table, Thanksgiving, that kind of reference, waiting to play next with their aunt. Me and her play a couple games. We play pretty good. We sit down. So I'm going to show you a little quick picture of them. I like to do that just so you have some context. That's us sitting at the table. You can rewind it and figure it out. So what happens is the way that picture is, we sit down, we start playing. We're drinking, everybody's drinking, so it's getting a little loud, curious. They win the first 2 games. And the second one, the first one was pretty convincing. And the yells that are talking. Y'all ain't beating us. And Jay goes to me, Kev, I got you like 10 games in a row or something like that, man. You never beaten me. So I have this idea of like, oh, all right. That means Aunt switch sides. And the other thing was that they sent me a picture. So while I'm still not there at the park yet, he sends a picture of new Dominos. Got a new box of Dominos. Yo, I'm ready for you. So I find out those first 2 games we're playing with the old Dominos. So I get a little blusterous. With the new Dominos. Crack the new Dominos. I will bust your ass with the new Dominos. What? Get my Dominos. Cousin's like, no, they knew. Why are you going to do that? Because he said he wants to play with the new Dominos. He showed them to me. I'm telling you, I guarantee you I will bust your ass with your new Dominos. And crack them. And guy has the nerve of doing Facebook Live. He won 2 games. Actually, he won throughout the day. A few more games. I think he said it was like 5-1 at that time. Then they beat us a couple times. 4-1, and then they became 6-1. They showing it on Facebook Live. I'm like, all right, now we're going to play with your Domino's. He's like, he wants me to crack him. He's going to crack him. Turn the Facebook Live to me. I'm gonna bust your ass with your new dominoes. So we start playing. Shaking. Boom, we win the first hand. Boom, in the second hand. Boom, in the third hand. Boom, copy. Boom, Chiba. Bust your ass with your new dominoes. We won't do that again. I'm gonna play again. Now, you know, this has been going on. They've been playing all day, starting to get dusk dawn. You know, getting late. We're losing light. We're not under any lamp. You know, they got to start pulling our phones. We're playing again. The partner can barely see the dominoes every time she moves to the side. Why are you looking at my dominoes? Anyway, first hand win. Second hand win. All right. Oh, seems like the same thing. No. Oh. They win a couple of hands. They feel like they're getting back into it. But it's like 300 to 100. Then they win a couple more hands. Then we win a few more hands. And then we're creeping up there, and we're at 450 or something like that. It's getting dark. We're losing light. And it's like we're playing. We're setting it up. And God forbid what happens. Your boy gets a copy. And it's like, I almost lose it. Copy, get the fuck out of here. I told you I was going to bust your ass with your new download. He's like, yo, it's only 2-2. No, when you get a Chiba, it's worth 2 games. Anyway, it's dark. I'm out. Oh, why are you punking out? Why are you leaving? That was dark. You can play again. It'll come around again. But you got your ass bust with your new domino. And that felt good. I thought I shit out with you. That was a nice little story. So, kind of the reason why I like to talk a lot. I like to talk. I had a lot of ideas in my head. I like to share with people. I like to be like that trailblazer. Back in the day, when I was young, you know, like late 80s, early 90s, I used to want to have that the anchor chain, the medallion that was an anchor. I used to be big into that. I never bought that, but I ended up buying something else, 97, the thing that I follow. But then the next thing I started to get on were lighthouses. And I like lighthouses because they are beacon. In the dusk, in the dark of the night, the ships look for that lighthouse to guide them. So I love lighthouses. I got paintings. My daughter sent me a picture once where she drew a lighthouse. So everybody understands. Dominoes and lighthouses. That's all. That's what I'm about. It's about choice. People need to follow their choices. And your choice is yours. So I talked a little bit about it last week when I was doing it solo. I talked a little bit about the book, right? The process of becoming. So we could chop it up a little bit. If I was doing a speaking engagement, that type of thing, walking in and have a crowd of people in the auditorium, I was walking up to the stage, the music that would be playing would be Black Sheep's The Choice Is Yours. You know, you can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that. I think you get with this, because this is where it's at. I like that song, run it for about 30 seconds, walk on the stage, just start talking about becoming, the process of becoming. What I want to talk about today is probably like kind of set it up a little bit. Talk a little bit about the contents, the table of contents, and I created an index, so there's certain topics I can run through real quick, and if you found that was something that you were interested in, you wanted to get to right away to see where I go with it, then before you read everything else, that could be one way to go about it. So, the table of contents. There's a prologue, there's an introduction, then something I did. So like I said, it's been a labor of love, been doing it for about 10 years, so really more than 10 years. But I wrote in a sequential order, and then at some point, like every time I would read it, I couldn't get to that point where I just kept stopping because I kept re-editing, and I couldn't get past the point. Then I had this idea to flip it. So chapter 15 became chapter 1. So I put it in reverse order. So the chapters go like this. Chapter 1, the XYZs of success, putting it all together. So I kind of like put it all together for you, and then I start working backwards and chopping it up. Chapter 2 is the influences. So to me, giving people guidance or talking about things or advice or what have you, is to say, you have something to say to help them get to somewhere. And influence is an important part of that. And influencers are people that can influence you, me influencing you, or people that influence me. So I do talk about 4 people across my life that help me along the way, and they had a big influence on me. And then I talk about this process that I read in a book called the Chris Series about influence and how you move the 7 stages. So I feel talking about influence is important. Chapter 3 is balance. So remember, I'm working backwards, right? I put it all together. I talk about the influences, balance. So I've talked about a bunch of things, or I'm about to talk about a bunch of things, and I always believe there has to be balance. If somebody has an opinion, there's a counter opinion. Somebody has a thought, and there's another thought. If everybody was just on one side, the seesaw would be on the bottom, and somebody would just be up there by themselves. You need to have balance so that you have a wider variety of thought. It may all lead to that one point, and that may be the most important point, but you have to have those counter arguments or devil's advocates, as they say, to add to it. So I talk a little bit about balance. Chapter 4 is about confidence. Love the line from Jadakiss, when you say I'm the best, I'm not cocky, I'm confident. It's a compliment. So, yes, there's a little bit of arrogance in there. You got to sprinkle that in, but you do need to be confident about whatever it is that you do if you really want to be successful long term. So, confidence is a chapter. Chapter 5, then I start breaking it down to what I call the process and the things that I believe really, really work to something that can be really, really consistent. So, you can pick these up no matter what it is you do in life, the lowest part of the workforce to the highest. This is something that can help you. So I start with awareness. Chapter 6, anticipation. Chapter 7, action. Awareness, anticipation, action. Those 3 things are on this loop, and I talk about them each and how they connect to one another and how they go back to the beginning. And I got that kind of from the idea of, well, you may not have a computer figure things out for you and will remind you of a bunch of things, but if you are conscious of certain things, you can become your own. We are computers. We're just not cold box machines. But the way our bodies function, the complexity of it all, we are computers. And it's really accessing your internal drive via awareness, anticipation, action. Chapter 8 moves into effort. Chapter 9, expectation. So those 2 go together, effort, expectation. It's like a little model. Most people put in this effort based on their expectation, but if you work in a job, playing on a team, in a relationship, the other person, the other people, they have expectations too. Your efforts need to match up to the right expectation. So I talk a little bit about efforts and a little bit about expectation and how they go together, along with the 3 A's, awareness, anticipation, and action. Chapter 10, I talk about time. And again, I had somebody read the book once and they were like, sometimes I go into these areas where, it's not my expertise, but what I'm talking about is how it affects me in time. So I kind of talk about the juxtaposition of when you was a child and you didn't have nothing to do, the day went on forever, right? You're like bored out of your mind and it's like, when will this day end? And as you get older and you have a job, and you go from week to weekend, you have a good time on the weekend, and now you have to go back to work on Monday. You can't wait for the next weekend. And all of a sudden, all those times that you kept waiting, wanting that weekend, and it came and went. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I'm 40 years old. What happened? Time flies. You don't have enough time when you're having fun. So I'll talk a little bit about time. Chapter 11 is about choices and decisions and how, again, we need to be responsible and have ownership for those type of things. So I'll get a little bit into that. Chapter 12 is becoming intuitive. I wrote this poem once called Stealing Moments, and I get into it and I chop it up a little bit about just accessing life moment to moment, being in it, being present. Chapter 13 is about opportunity, your aha moment. Everybody has heard of Oprah. She used to do a segment, aha moments, that moment where something clicks in your head and you're like, aha, you finally got it. So accessing your aha moments, trying to figure those things out, trying to write those things down. I get into that a little bit. Chapter 14 is understanding the wow factor standards. I go into a lot of definitely what happened with people that go into the Olympics. Like the way they have to train their whole lives. And before it was amateur, then it became professional. So I do attach it to the dream team, Mike Krzyzewski, how he was an Olympic basketball champion, coaching the team, and how he coached his college team to multiple championships. and what were the differences in the standards. One with professionals and one with college kids that, were just there because of their talent and their scholarship. So I look for that consistency, and I talk a lot about that. Then chapter 15, some insights. I call it insights from inside the box. A lot of people talk about, you have to be inside the box when you talk about things. I think sometimes you need to be outside of the box. So it's kind of saying, well, what is the box? What does that really mean? Then I get into the epilogue, some odds and ends. And then since I'm a big movie guy, there's some odds and ends in a chapter called movies. And I get into a bunch of movies. So the book's broken down into 4 parts. Part 1, reverse order, because I switched it. Part 2, the fundamentals, awareness, action, efforts, expectation. Part 3, the red team. Got that from, what was that, news something. It was on HBO. But anyway, they were like in a newsroom. They proposed a story to a group of like 5 people. They work on it. They punch holes into it. They figure it. They tighten it up. And they're like, all right, now we're going to show it to the next team. And that's the red team. So another group of people that have no idea what the story's about, but it's been cleaned up and worked on. They think they got it good. They introduce it to the red team. The red team goes, and they start poking holes into it. They keep improving until there's a third team, or maybe the editor-in-chief finally pokes the rest of the holes in it, and then you tighten it up so those holes disappear. So I like that idea of a red team, and that's where that chapters 10 through 14. And then part 4 is next level. So the whole idea of becoming something is to get to something, get to that next level. Becoming is building yourself to a consistent basis, and then what will come next will be sustaining it. So you can sustain it once you become, but then what does it mean once you sustain it, and how do you take it to the next level? And I chopped that up a little bit. And then, like I said, I added an index. So let's jump to that. Here's some topics I used to talk about. There's quite a few. So some of the stuff I did talk about already. So the aha moment. I talk about Andy Grove from Intel. He says this great quote. I talk about B.O.B., best of the best, bottom of the barrel. Ben Affleck, a couple of movies he was in that he's done. There was these soliloquies that he talked about that I really liked. Blade Runner, very poetic scenes in there that I felt were relevant to the process of becoming. The book Candide, so by Voltaire, some interesting stuff in there. CBS, I used to work for them in their Department of Research and Development for a very brief time as an intern, so I talked a little bit about that. Trying to get a sitcom off the ground. Chris Rock, love his comedy, especially Bring the Pain, The Married Man, that type of comedy was really, really good to me. Cindy Crawford, she's the one that talked about presence, and there's a quote from her that I really love. Clint Eastwood, the man, a lot of his movies have these great quotes, do you feel left apart, what do you? One of the things I loved the best was he would say a man's got to know his limitations. He said something else that I quote later. The movie Closer, I mentioned Influence, the Chris series, so I'll talk about that. Dave Chappelle, kind of big, tells it like it is, so he's come big lately. Derek Jeter, very consistent Yankee winner. We talked about how you win a championship that's flashy, you got to do it again. You got to do things start all over. Even if it's the same exact team, you don't start from when you won. So taking it back was important. I like some of the stuff he said. There's a book I read a long time ago called Die Broke. You can't take it with you. So it just talks about how you set your situation up so that you live your life, you experience things, you leave enough as you can, but you set it up a certain way. You don't want to have all bunch of great material things that you die and you don't get to experience. You don't know what happens to it. You put it in a will and it goes to people. So all your life's work just went to people. So enjoy some of it. So I like that book. Dustin Pedroia, I talk about him. He was the Boston Red Sox. Now I'm a Yankee fan, so talking about a Red Sox person, it must have been something important to me, but just how he fought as this little dude to be such a big stature in baseball, Major League Baseball. Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl winner. I'm a New York Giants fan, so I'll talk a little bit about his consistency in Super Bowl moments. Will he be in the Hall of Fame? That's another question. A lot of debate. GSD, Get Shit Done. That's a little page. I have question marks. I got to figure out where I put that. The movie Heat. Love the movie Heat. quotes from Al Pacino, Don't Waste His Time. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I have a quote, I call it ignorance is infinite as opposed to ignorance is bliss. It's really infinite. And it's something that we're always learning, so it's important. Open the book with James Cameron. He did a special for Oprah where he's talking about his creative process and tumblers and things clicking and everything that you do in your life all comes together at some point, but you have to be ready for it. Great quote. Jeremy Renner, I mean, he was Hawkeye in the Avengers, but he did some other movies where he talked about process. Kaizen is the process, continuous improvement. Talk a little bit about that. My boy Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, number 24. Some quotes and some stuff about his process. Marvel Comics. I talk about the stock and how I tracked it and being risk averse, and I could have been a multi-millionaire, but a scaredy cat and didn't go that route. So a little interesting there. The book I read talked about memories of the future. The book is called The Living Company. Well, memories of the future is building up the scenario for that. When you come upon a scenario, it almost feels like a memory. You know what to do with it. Great stuff. Mike Krzyzewski, Mowbray Kaplan is a person who does something called the 10Ks of branding. And he does a lot on Instagram right now. He talks a lot into different companies. So some stuff from him. I like Oliver Wendell Holmes talked about the mind. Once you come upon an idea and stretch your mind, it cannot just go back to formal parameters. It's like that's what's important. Keep getting knowledge. Oprah, something called the Pygmalion effect. When I was in grad school, they taught us that anybody can be taught something, a process, a thing, or this or that. So it's not like, oh, they're hopeless. You can teach them. Ray Lewis, a lot of inspirational stuff. When he talks about team and winning 2 championships, about a man's heart and whatnot. The red team, just talk a little bit about that. Regression analysis is another, school term. You're taking a whole bunch of factors. If you change one factor, how does it affect the rest of the factors? I feel like the whole AAA, IOU, awareness, anticipation, action, effort, expectation, influence, opportunistic, and understanding is a formula, and that's one or two things. How does it overall with your choice and building your process? Rob Lowe says a nice little quote I used early on. Ryan Seacrest, how he followed Merv Griffin's method of all these shows and the work that you have to put in. Another person, which I don't really mention now, which maybe something I add later, but just reading up about him. Nick Cannon kind of did the same thing, building these little companies that he's using. Although he's not that hot right now, he got fired from one job, but that won't stop him. The guy did marry Mariah Carey, for God's sake. Black Eyed Peas, a lot of stuff in their music. They talk about, time being currency and fluency and all that stuff. So some stuff I use. The Dream Team. My favorite book, The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I've had conversations with some people where, a few years ago, the Republicans were trying to use Ayn Rand stuff in a way that was for them, but it's really talking about there's very few fundamentals in life, and everything else are just layers. You break things down to those fundamentals, you start to understand. That book, The Living Company, the movie The Matrix, big influence on me. I love that movie. And then my favorite phrase, when people ask me why I do the stuff I do or what do I get out of it, I say the process rewards me. Now, everything I'm doing to build up my process, it's the process that rewards me. So I go back to that story. The show, come to the big table. I'm going to bust your ass with your Dominos. Throwing down that coffee at the end, screaming, get the fuck out of here. That's the process. Rewarding. I hope to talk to you soon again. See you next time.